regards to offense and defense, so defense wins championships. That's the old cliche.
Yeah.
We see just a different type of football and style of football that we've never seen before, and it's evolved and really exploded over the last 5 to 10 years, where we see a Joe Burrow throwing, who would have ever thought this, 60 touchdown passes this year.
In college.
There are programs that are being built and approaches that basically just say, hey, we want to score every time we touch the ball. We expect to score. We almost need to score. And we're just hoping our defense just makes it difficult for the offense to score, just makes tackles, just, contains the play.
Right.
An 18-yard gain is sometimes seen as a moral victory because we at least got the guy on the ground. And therefore, if our defense guys can just get their hands up, maybe bat a ball in the air, do something, strip the ball a few times, and maybe out of 12 to 15 possessions, maybe 3 times, we're not even stopping them really. We're just forcing a play or a mistake. Then that's a victory. Where just your thoughts about how important defensive football play is today, and if that's changed at all.
Okay. That's actually an amazing question. I think that it always has a way of bouncing back. And what I mean by it is the sport and the art of football and the art of coaching football. For the longest, you had every decade has had that defense that was hard. And then once it was unlocked, everyone else started watching that film and they were able to attack it. I mean, you had the 80s of the 46 defense with the Bears, and everybody was up on the line of scrimmage, and I think you had one high safety and probably one corner, something like that, and everybody was up, but that was because of who they were playing against and how they played the football at that time. Then you also moved to the 90s where you had the 3-4 starting to creep in, but a lot of people were still that 4-3, and then the 3-4 came in. You had that strong side edge rusher on one side, and you had the other edge rusher that can get after the QB. And then you started to see people kind of like that, but didn't like it because they didn't like the zero front of the nose being able to get doubled and blown back. So if you were to ask me about defense, I think that defense is still the most important thing. If I can stop you from scoring points, or if I can get after your QB as far as rushing the pass, if I can affect him and make him get off of his point, even something as simple as having a 3 technique like an RJ McIntosh, like he used to, at 6'4", 289 pounds, can bull rush your guard and get a hand up and force you to have to look and try to see around his arm to get where you really want to go with that ball. Something slight as that can affect you and force a turnover. Or you having to get rid of that ball a little faster because my DNs are flying and getting after you. And now you throw an interception. I mean, even look at early on in that national championship game when you saw the big difference in the coaching as far as Clemson having one of the best co-offensive coordinators, who's now a head coach at USF, one of the best, if not the best defensive mind in college football right now, Brett Venables. And he even came out with a 3-1-7. He invented a defense in 16 days to hold off as long as he could the LSU Tigers. Being able to be innovative and be modern on the defensive side of the ball is very, very important. So to me, if it's still about pass rush and tackling, of course, on the defensive side of the ball, but the game has changed to a pass first. And if you have enough athletes on the field to where everybody can do the 3 main things, everyone can pass rush, everyone can cover, everyone can tackle. I mean, from the defensive line all the way back to the safeties. If you have athletes that can do all 3 of those things across the board, I mean, think about your cat calls, your nickel blitzes, your boundary corner blitzes, where they come on and they actually sack the QB. So in my eyes, corners still need to be able to get after the QB or pass rush to a certain extent. Linebacker now is going to be one of the hardest positions because you need to be able to be fast, strong to take on blocks, get off blocks. You need to have great technique and non-false stepping, open field tackling, coverage and man and zone. You got to be able to catch. I mean, it's a lot at that linebacker position. But then at safety, you got to be able to run with these 4-2, 4-3 wide receivers, and now your tight ends too. So across the board, I think having athletes that can do all three phases of the major thing on the defensive side of the ball, which is pass rush, coverage, and tackle, is extremely important. And defense is just as important as in high-powered offense.
And the defensive front seven over the past few years has been one of the best in college football. So despite all the losses, 6-7, 7-6, the last 2 years, that linebacking core obviously extremely experienced this past season and very productive. And the defensive line has been one of the better ones that I've seen in college football, led, of course, by Greg Russo, just being a monster this past season. Any concern that so you lose that wealth of production at linebacker where you had all those guys growing up and developing together and just being that stalwart of the defense, led by Shaq Quarterman, Michael Pinckney, and on down the line. And then the defensive line has been dominant. Do you have concerns that you're not going to be able to maintain that level of play in the front seven this year?
I wouldn't say concerns, but I mean, it's always a cause to pause because you want to see it happen. You know, once these young men hit the door, the star system should go out the window. And most of those top tier programs, it does.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as you walk in, you're no longer 5-star Chad Thomas. You're Chad Thomas number 9. You're no longer 5-star Tracy Howard. Tracy Howard number 3. You're no longer 2-star Ed Reed. You're Ed Reed number 20. Come here, earn your spot, on your keep, hit people in the mouth, make plays. Now, at Miami recently, we've had this big issue whether we were just awarding people starting positions because they were 4- and 5-star recruits that didn't really earn it, or we were kind of just giving jobs away to people and just, oh, well, you've been here the longest, so you're the starter or you're the captain of that position. As far as in the front seven, I think Miami is doing extremely well at the edge rush position. I mean, the length, the size, and athleticism, and the recruitment. The defensive front is something that I'm not really too worried about. The production of the interior linemen is what I'm worried about. Young men like Jordan Miller coming in and playing as many snaps as he could, mostly on run stop. He's probably our best defensive lineman, and he was a redshirt freshman. Next to him, as far as in the ranking system, and it's funny you asked this question because I just did a grading on the defensive tackles on my channel, so go ahead and check that out. The second best was Nasty Nesta Silvera, and he's coming off of an injury to where he had to miss the entire spring and the first 4 games of the season because he had ankle surgery. So, and he was the second best defensive tackle on our team. This is behind a senior in Pat Bethel and a 6'6" pass the eye test dude like John Ford, who literally could pick somebody up with his hand and just drive a guard back if he actually wanted to, because he has all of those intangibles and he checks off all of those things. But when you look at paper, pen and paper, or you Google these guys, they look good. Now we need them to produce. So yes, I'm worried about the interior production on defensive line. Exterior, as far as the edge, I'm not really worried about. When we take the step back to linebacker, we lose the production of Shaq Quarterman and Michael Pinckney, but we gain the athleticism that is going to make our defense a lot more modern. Being able to have young men like Sam Brooks, who any game he started for Miami, he led us in tackles. This kid's a freshman. So, or any game he played in, he led us in tackles. He comes in the last 8 minutes of Bethune-Cookman game, leads us in tackles after Shaq Quarterman and Mike Pinckney played the entire game up until that point. He comes in for La Tech and starts for Pinckney next to Shaq Quarterman, leads the team in tackles that game. So whenever he gets a chance to touch the field, Sam Brooks from Miami Northwestern, a freshman edge rusher from Miami Northwestern, moved in to linebacker. He flies all over the field and flashes on the screen. And that's what you look for in linebacker. Are you flying around? Are you hitting people? And are you flashing on film, especially as a young linebacker? But next to him, you're going to have McLeod, number 53. He's going to have a chance to come in and solidify while he was a part of the Bermuda Triangle of the 2016 recruiting class with all 3 of those linebackers. And he was the highest rated linebacker out of all 3. Injuries have really held him back from having a chance to show who he is. And he was a 3-4 inside linebacker in high school. But in order to play in 2016, he had to play the strong side linebacker next to Pinckney, who was our weak side, and Shaq, who was our middle. Now he gets to come in and be the middle linebacker and show us, what he can bring to the table. So we lose a lot of experience, both at defensive end, defensive line, and linebacker. But we infuse that with a lot of athleticism and young men who are hungry to get after the QB up front and to hit people in the mouth at the linebacker position.